Hello and welcome to another evening of tropical cyclone activity. And boy, isn't it a very well busy time at the moment. We have 5 tropical cyclones active. Well, not tropical, but cyclones. One of them is subtropical. 4 of them are indeed tropical, and the subtropical one is perhaps the most interesting one in some ways because it's occurred in the South Atlantic. Not only that, we do have other storms as well. Cyclone Pam in the South Pacific, Cyclone Nathan, Cyclone Olwyn, and Tropical Storm Bavi has formed in the Western Pacific as well. In just a moment's time, I'll take you around the world to show you all the current storms that are active as we speak. But first, let me introduce everyone else who's with me this evening. First of all, we have Jean over in Mauritius, who's put his Mauritius flag in the garden, apparently. Is that right? You should keep it in your room. I liked it when it was on the curtain. We also have Daniel.
Hello, good evening, or
What's your
whatever
nickname
day.
again?
Wineal, isn't it?
Just testing. We also have Jason screen sharing here, helping me out because it's really busy. I've got to look up all the links before I click them and all that sort of stuff, so I can't always do things as exact. And I also have to add people to conversations and reply to comments and everything else that's going on. We also have Pablo. He's in Brazil, not too far from where Cyclone Cari is right now. How are the conditions there?
Actually, it's the clear.
Clear.
The skies clear.
Oh.
Later I will show you.
Is it windy? Sometimes it can be clear and windy though, can't it?
I will take a photograph.
Sorry, what was that? Did you take a photo, did you say? We'll show that momentarily when he gets it up. But in the meantime, Waniel's adjusting his glasses, I can see on his screen. So let's take a look first of all at Jason's screen whilst I get my stuff ready. You can see that is Cyclone Cari, the one we're just talking about right now. It's the first one we'll talk about this evening, but we'll talk about any of them at any point because there are lots of storms active, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know what is going on around the world. Several different places under warnings right now, so there's a lot of people who are under threat, I suppose, at this time. But Pablo's arrived with his photograph. So how long ago was that? Pretty recent, I'm guessing. Okay. Well, in the meantime, let me show you what's going on around the world. Here's another image of Cyclone Cari. Subtropical this time, we still believe. Oh, his image has arrived again. Is that the same one? Right. So the cloudiness there is probably the edge of the storm, isn't it?
Yes.
So I suppose that's how close you are at this time. We also have, of course, the remnants of Cyclone Haliber. Believe it or not, they're still going, and we're still delivering rainfall to Mauritius and Réunion, but I think most of that has now petered out, and the storm is moving away, the remnants there. We also have Cyclone Pam. Now, that reached 130 miles per hour not so long ago, Category 4. In the past 6 hours, though, it has not intensified. You can see its eye there, and I wonder, now that the eye has appeared and things may really be starting to get going with that storm, certainly at the moment, the JTWC are predicting this storm to become a Category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. And I know Force 13 not so long ago posted a picture showing what wind speeds are possible on some of those islands in Vanuatu. I'll show you that a little bit later on. It's probably still up to date. Cyclone Nathan has intensified somewhat. It's up to 60 miles per hour. Its air pressure is 985 millibars, 13.7 degrees south, 145.8 degrees east. That puts it, it's basically sitting on the coast of Queensland right now, and heavy rainfall affecting that whole area, including the Gulf of Carpentaria coast as well, as the storm extends over there. It's quite significantly smaller than Pam. We'll get a comparison shot on that at a later time. There's Cyclone Olwyn. That's also intensifying rather quickly at this time. 65 miles per hour, 982 millibars, 18.2 degrees south, 115.3 degrees east. That's headed for Western Australia, a landfall possibly near Exmouth, where it could do so with winds of 85 miles per hour. That's currently forecasted Category 3 on the Australian wind scale. Finally, our newest storm, Tropical Storm Bavi, has formed in the Western Pacific, not too far from the Marshall Islands. You can see those islands on your right-hand side of that storm there. The islands of Cosray, also towards your left there, and just further along the left-hand side on the very edge of your shot is Pohnpei, which the storm is probably going to pass to the north. Here's the Australian tracking map showing what warnings are in effect right now. So this is for Olwyn. You can see cyclone warning in effect from Wim Creek to Cape Cuvier, including inland areas such as Panawanika and Nanutara. Corrections if I'm not doing well pronunciating all these, but never mind. With tropical storm watches, cyclone watches in effect from Cape Cuvier on the coastline down to, I did remember the name, but it's something else. What is it? Kalbarri, including inland places such as Gascoyne Junction and Murchison Roadhouse. In terms of Cyclone Nathan, we have cyclone warnings in effect from Cowan southwards to Port Douglas along the coastline, and cyclone watches extending towards Lockhart River to the north. Looking now on the other storm, is it this page? Yes. Cyclone Pam, Category 4 on both scales, I think, Saffir-Simpson and the Australian scale. We have, well, you can see it here, most of the main islands of Vanuatu, the northernmost anyway, at least in size the main islands, are under warnings. The capital, Port Vila, is still under an alert or a watch at this time, and that extends throughout the rest of Vanuatu from Port Vila southwards, northwards of that, warning areas there, including the easternmost part of the Solomon Islands, the Santa Cruz Islands, under warnings right now. And the small atoll of Fatutaka is probably being pounded by hurricane force winds at this point. Daniel, anything to say on that?
Not really. I found a news article suggesting that Nathan's forecast to change direction.
Well, it is.
Yeah, have you covered that already? Is something?
Well, looking at the tracking map on the Australian Bureau of Meteorology here, let me try and zoom in on that slightly if I can, just to make it just that little bit easier for everyone to see. You can see the blue Category 2 icon there. That is its current position. The black ones are its past locations. The grey ones are its forecasted positions. So it's just about to make its closest approach to Queensland before turning away and then off towards the east, where it will probably peak. It says here it's a Category 3 on the Australian scale. It's currently predicted to become a Category 2 storm on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale as well, with winds of around 110 miles per hour, we believe, before eventually moving on to New Caledonia later on.
I've got something quite embarrassing to admit now. I've been watching the wrong screen.
Right.
I'll pay attention to yours. I was
Which
on the wrong
screen have
one.
you been watching?
Jean's screen.
There is your screen right now. You can see it's quite an interesting graphic actually. You can see all three systems in the southern hemisphere right now, and you can tell it's quite easy to see here that Cyclone Pam is the biggest and boldest, I suppose you could say, compared to the other two storms. Nathan in the centre, Olwyn on your left-hand side near Western Australia.
As a matter of fact, I was actually looking at that a few moments ago and I realised Jan had got the graphic up, so I was actually thinking of showing it. Should we include the link to it in the YouTube discussion in case anyone wants to have a look at it?
Sure. Hopefully people can actually see it anyway, but
it's
if
just
they can't, then sure.
Could John post the link in the description?
Yeah,
Not
it is quite a bit to copy, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'll see if I can find it again.
I'm trying to find something else at this point, so do bear with me, people watching.
There's a bear with you.
There's not a bear with me now, but there is a lot going on around the world. There's several systems, and maybe history being made. I'm not entirely sure whether this has actually happened before. The amount of storms that we're seeing and all its different scenarios. Of course, with Cyclone Cari in the South Atlantic, the second named storm to form there in this year, in this season, 2014 to 15 in the South Atlantic. I think that's a first. I'm sure Pablo will correct me. But there you are. I'm just actually looking at all the other links going on whilst I'm looking for what I'm supposed to be looking for. I'm trying to find... What's that?
I can't post link addresses in the comments.
Oh, I see.
Oh, well,
Yes, that is a problem.
Mm.
I'm trying to find a particular post that I did showing an interesting image. Here it is. Hold on.
Out of interest, what's the largest number of storms that have been active at the same time, simultaneously?
Well, since I've been keeping track, which is a fair amount of time now, I think it was 5 tropical storms at the same time. So I think we could be at least on the cusp of a record. Let me actually find out from the Force 13 website what the record is since I started doing that in early 2013. Let me have a look. Yes, the record for the most amount of storms active on a single calendar day since January 1st, 2013 is 5 on the 13th of September 2013 and on the 6th of August 2014. And obviously this will be another date now to put in there as well, unless we... I don't know whether or not we will be counting Cari or not in that total just yet, just because it's subtropical rather than tropical. But so here's an interesting graphic that I was going to show you. Hold on a minute, where is it? Is that the one? I've got, yes, there it is. This was a rather interesting image showing what the storm's potential could be. I'm not saying this will happen, particularly given how the storm's not intensified in the past few hours, but this is potentially a worst case scenario where you could see wind speeds up to Category 5 status near the capital Port Vila and some of its islands north experiencing near those conditions as well. Should the storm deviate ever so slightly towards the left-hand side of the current forecasted line, we could see very dramatic conditions along all of those islands there. And the rest of Vanuatu could possibly see Category 2 or Category 3 conditions too, and even New Caledonia may see tropical storm conditions, depending on where exactly the storm goes in the next few days. But certainly that is the biggest threat in terms of wind speed. In terms of people affected, well, I'm not entirely sure which storm will take the title for that, because the Australian storms are affecting not particularly populated places. There are people there, of course, but not very built-up areas, metropolitan areas, or anything like that. And Cari is not really particularly affecting Brazil so much, and Tropical Storm Bavi, of course, as well. So, even though they are all affecting land, they're not particularly populated land areas, except perhaps the capital Port Vila of Vanuatu.
Should we cover any safety measures or anything like that?
You might want to do that. I'm not sure what's going on with Jason at the moment. He keeps leaving and coming back. I'm not sure whether he's having some sort of issue. I'm trying to show the imagery that he's trying to show us at this time, but I'm not sure whether people can see that or not, or whether they're just looking at the icon. But alternatively, there's the other imagery from Jean, showing all the storms in the southern hemisphere, and Also the West Pacific cyclone as well located there. I also should mention that there are warnings in effect for the new storm, tropical storm Bavi as well. I'll show it here on this text forecast. This is the only bit that's important, really. A tropical storm watch in effect for Ujai and Isling Lap Lap atolls in the western Marshall Islands. So there could be tropical storm conditions occurring there in the next few days.
You should always consult your local radio station, shouldn't you, regarding the status of the storm?
Generally, when the storm is actually striking the area.
Yeah.
But indeed. So that's the situation with those warnings there. That's a water vapor image showing the Western Pacific. We can also take a look at the area around Australia at this time as well. Particularly if we look at this shot, you can see all three systems on there again. And this is where you can see most clearly the difference in size between Cyclone Pam and Cyclones Nathan and Olwyn over Australia there. Cyclone Pam, a significantly larger system, though Nathan appears to be increasing in size a little bit. But Pam there, 130 miles per hour at this point. It's too many storms to track, isn't there?
I see something on Google Maps to the north of Pam. What's that?
That is the new storm Bavi in the Western Pacific.
Yeah.
That's right. Daniel the Novice strikes again.
We've got one to the east of South America, haven't we, at the moment?
That's right. We were talking about that just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Pablo knows all about it.
Sorry, I'm not keeping up with all this.
Mental Disorder says we had really bad weather in Mauritius today, and I'm sure Jean can verify that for us as well, because I think he mentioned that earlier in the text chat on how the conditions haven't been so good over in Mauritius today. I know there's been flooding in the past few days over there as well, hasn't there? Yeah. But let's return with Jason's imagery, which we can see again. There's the floater imagery from NOAA showing Cyclone Cari, the subtropical storm. Maybe it is turning tropical. It's starting to look a bit more impressive, I suppose, if impressive is the right word to use. And there's another variation of the imagery showing all that dry air towards the left-hand side and towards the north as well, which is almost enveloping the storm, I suppose, in the past few frames. But still heavy rainfall occurring further north of that storm as well over Brazil. But the worst of the heavy rain appears to have subsided, at least for the time being, over the Santa Catarina area, which is where the storm, I believe, is closest to at this time. There's a synoptic chart as well showing the subtropical cyclone Cari. Pressure's around 1,000 millibars. How current is that? That was at 1:30 p.m., so that was several hours ago, but probably still at least somewhat relevant. And moving 5 knots to the southeast, and winds around 45 miles per hour at this time, as far as we know. Here's actually another synoptic chart from Jean showing the remnants of Halibut still going after quite some time now, and it seems to be lower than 1,000 millibars in there as well, affecting Mauritius and Réunion at this current time. It may well be the last storm that we see in the South Indian Ocean this season, because it's certainly looking pretty quiet there in the next few days. Look, last time I looked at the models, at least anyway, it was a few days ago, but it wasn't predicting anything at all. But then again, it didn't predict the current tropical storm Bavi to form either. So I guess we shall see. Daniel.
I'm sorry for being a bit quiet. I'm just looking at Google Maps at the moment.
Oh, you're just murmuring to me, so I thought you had something to say, that's all.
No, I was just acknowledging what you were saying, so you don't think I'm ignoring you.
Well, you usually ignore me anyway.
I do not.
Here's the current shear map for the Australian region as well, where you can see all the storms, sort of. It's rather interesting. I don't think it's intentional. You can just about make out a tropical storm sign right off to your top left hand of the screen as well near Indonesia. There isn't a tropical storm there, in case you needed the verification on that, but you can see the two storms. Now, Pam is marked by your storm on the right-hand side, the hurricane icon. That's in a marginal environment at the moment. It's low towards its right-hand side, towards the east and towards the south, though it is increasing slightly. Maybe that's had some part to play as well in its slow intensification. I believe there may have been an IWOL replacement cycle. I think someone said that at some point on our chat. And also Cyclone Nathan as well. High wind shear amounts to the north, and its land interaction coupled with that has meant that it's only intensifying slowly at this time. You can almost see Cyclone Olwyn on your left-hand side as well, but we'll move over to the Western Australian area to get a better image of that. And there you see it once more, in a very favourable environment, that one. So looking good for Cyclone Olwyn, at least until it makes landfall.
I've just found something that might be of interest.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, according to Sentinel or something like that, the only March hurricane on record was 107 years ago.
Yes, that's the Atlantic.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
We had a storm in the late 1900s. I don't know whether it was 1908 or 09. I'm sure Pablo will know because he knows most things about I think it was a Category 2 storm, wasn't it, in the Atlantic that occurred and affected the Caribbean, I think, or maybe I'm thinking of a different one. It's quite difficult to keep track on all the storms that have formed ever because there are so many. Since 1950, I think there have been several thousand. I can't quite remember how many. Looking once more here, though, this is the Western Pacific map showing the wind shear in that area too. You can see, marked by the tropical storm icon, our new storm, Bavi. Low amounts of wind shear to its east and north, so it could go for gradual intensification over the next few days. That's certainly what's predicted. JTWC initially predicted that the storm would become a typhoon, but they've backed off that just a little bit and now say that it will peak just short of that at 70 miles per hour, but you can never be certain. There's the Japan, the JMA's version of the tracking map as well. Pretty much agreeing with the track forecast showing the storm heading towards Guam in the next few days and then moving onwards. I know a lot of people have interests in the Philippines or live there because we've done a lot of coverage of Philippine storms, and I know one or two of you have already asked whether the storm will affect the Philippines, but it seems very unlikely at this time. It just seems that it's probably almost certain the storm will either weaken and dissipate or turn towards the north, or both, before we see anything going on in the Philippines at this time. But you can never be too certain. Here's a map from Jason showing the tracks from Cari, forecasted tracks, of course. And it appears to me that they're saying that it's very near its peak. Some of the models on there saying that perhaps it's already reached its peak before a gradual weakening trend as it curves towards the southeast and then towards the east. But it looks like at this point that it has made its closest approach to Brazil.
I found a news article about the South American, what's it called again, the hurricane?
Cari
is it tropical storm?
Subtropical storm Cari in the...
Just reading something about hurricane force winds at Cape Horn or something.
Cape Horn?
Yeah.
That's somewhere else, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's near I believe it's near the south of South America. Between South America and Antarctica, I believe.
Well, that's in the wrong place as well.
Are you sure?
Yes, this is nowhere near that area.
It felt I don't know. This might be unrelated. I don't even know why. I typed in hurricane on Google and searched for news, and that's what came up.
Well, I'm not
need to.
convinced about that. The news can be very misinformative.
Very.
But there you go. What we do know is that Cyclone Cari right now is holding 45 mile per hour winds, sustained that is, and could be producing higher gusts. And I think it already has done actually, according to Pablo, in Brazil in the past 24 hours.
Mm.
There's Jean's map once more, showing the three systems as we see it right now. Just checking now to see any comments. I know that Stephen was talking about before we started this evening a note from a science geek. Earth-facing X2.1 solar flare happened today, the first one of the year. And I wonder, Stephen, whether you could provide a little bit of what's the word? Perspective in this. What exactly does X2.1 mean in terms of solar flares? Is that big? Is it small? I suppose that we're already in March. It's not particularly a common feature if it's only just happened today for the first one of the year. The way you're saying it sounds like there's quite a few that happen. But there you go. He also said that some scientists suggest that Earth-facing solar flares can potentially increase the rate of cyclonic intensification, and it would be a good time to judge that theory. It certainly would, wouldn't it?
Mm. Do you believe global warming has an impact on the amount of hurricanes that form? Or have I asked this before?
No, well, I'm not too sure, to be quite honest, because the general rate of storms, at least in the past few years, has been a little bit lower than average, but I don't think you can read too much into that. We're certainly seeing one or two stronger storms coming out, but then again, you could put that down to more reliable more reliable ways of measuring the storms. But I suppose the next 10 to 20 years will be rather interesting, and I think it will confirm whether anything is going on with the amount of storms that are occurring. And if it stays the same, it stays the same, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll all be here doing another live stream in about 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Yeah. So let me just recap everything that's going on around the world right now, looking at the latest images. Cyclone Cari, located in the South Atlantic. It's off the coast of Brazil, near Santa Catarina province. So for some reason, the image has just disappeared on me. We'll try and get that back. We also have the remnants of Cyclone Haliber still going south of Reunion, Mauritius, delivering heavy rain. It has done in the past few hours. Cyclone Pam, a very strong storm, 130 miles per hour, 937 millibars, going to affect Vanuatu as a very powerful storm. This is the one we are watching. Cyclone Nathan, located along the coast of Australia with winds of 60 miles per hour and air pressure of 985 millibars. And Cyclone Olwyn, 65 miles per hour and a pressure of 982 millibars off the coast of Western Australia. And the tropical storm Bavi, which has formed in the Western Pacific, winds of 40 miles per hour and a pressure of 996 millibars near the Marshall Islands. Warnings in effect for the western part of the Marshall Islands, the coast of Australia, Western Australia, Exmouth, around that area is perhaps where we're looking to see the landfall location for Cyclone Olwyn. Cyclone Nathan not expected to make landfall, but it will get very close, making what we believe to be its closest approach at this time before moving out to sea. Tropical storm cyclone warnings in effect for that whole area around northern Queensland, and I think yes, of course, cyclone warnings in effect for most of Vanuatu as well.
I just got a comment from Stephen P. Shaw on the comments. Saying there's a huge low pressure just west of the bottom of South America, so Cape Horn and southern Chile are getting very high winds at the moment, and to put the wind map over the area. So is that Jean who's got the wind map open at the moment?
Yes. Jean, navigate us to South America if you can. Let's actually show us Cari along with that cyclone, the cyclone that's going on in the in South America at this time. There we are. And a bit further down. There you can see Cari, but beyond the bottom of your image there, which hopefully we will see shortly, is another, must be an extratropical cyclone that's occurring down there as well. Stephen also commented saying that X-flares are the most intense solar flares that you can have. We have only had a few dozen in the past decade. When the sun flares directly at Earth, the ionosphere gets saturated with electrons. Now, I know when you get, I'm sure the solar flares have something to do with those freak events that have happened. There was one in Canada in 1989, I think, where the electricity went out for several days, and there was another one in 1853 or something like that. And I'm sure that has something to do with the solar flares that are going on there as well. I'm sure Stephen can shed some more light on that. Here you can see what's going on the southern coast of South America. Very strong winds occurring in the southernmost part of Chile right now. Possibly hurricane force winds, very strong indeed by the looks of things on here. Looks can be deceiving, I know, but a very deep extratropical low by the looks of things towards the south there. Jason's also got the image up on that as well, if we can see it. I'm not sure whether you guys can see it watching right now, but I can't at this time, but it's worked before, so I don't know whether you can see that or not. Hopefully we can. So I guess it's an angry world at the moment. Strong storms everywhere. I think we've lost Daniel for the time being. At least we've lost his mic anyway. Oh, he's talking in text. Well, I'll keep going anyway. So I wonder whether we've got visible imagery of Cyclone Pam yet. I think we do. And whether we can actually get this image up on Cari once more. Seems to have disappeared. But here's the latest image on Pam. There's a few lines through it, but never mind. You can see how the eye's been coming out a little bit. And it appears to be a fairly... Well, we know it's a strong storm, and I think that small atoll that I was mentioning not so long ago, I've forgotten its name, but I think that might be it, marked by that little orange bit towards the left-hand side. It's certainly land, so whoever lives on that island is certainly going to be experiencing some very strong conditions right now.
Have we covered the Fujiwara effect?
Not particularly.
Because mental disorders just commented. People have been talking a lot about the Fujiwara effect. Is it going to affect the 3 cyclones above of Australia? Could you guys talk a little about the Fujiwara effect? How often does it actually occur?
The Fujiwara effect obviously happens when storms get too close in proximity to each other. I think the general figure is around 1,000 miles or something like that. Or probably, I would imagine it differs depending on the size of the storms. But the Fujiwara effect occurs when storms get too close together, and you get a few scenarios that can occur out of that. The storms can cancel each other out, they can weaken each other. One storm can influence the direction that the other storm goes in, and I suppose we saw this a little bit with Pam as well, affecting Cyclone Nathan in a way. The reason I think why Nathan is stalling off Australia is partly due to Pam being there and being such a broad system which is pushing it away, because Nathan is going to naturally angle towards New Caledonia, I think, in the next few days after Pam leaves the area. So it'd be interesting to see how that one occurs, and you can almost, I mean, I suppose Nathan is feeling Pam pushing it away a little bit. I'm not sure whether that's actually the case, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was. But we've seen more obvious Fujiwara effects occur in the past. I'm trying to think exactly which ones. I think we had one in 2012 in the West Pacific. The names of the storms escape me. It might be Sanba and Tembin. And I think there was also one in 2009. When we had all the storms that bombarded the Philippines, and lots of Category 5 storms that year as well, weren't there? Waniel was going to say something, but it appears his mic has fallen out with us again. So we'll get him back in just a moment. Stephen continues to talk about the electrons from the flares, promoting storm enhancement at high levels over cyclonic formations, causing the storm to intensify more than forecast. So I suppose that's the theory on it, isn't it? And that theory, I suppose, will be being tested out right now. Those flares that occur from the sun, it must take at least some amount of time for it to reach Earth, right? I'm not exactly sure how long it takes for a solar flare to get from the sun to here, or whether it even matters. But I'm sure Stephen will correct us on that and tell us what it is. But here's what I was going to show you was another visible image, which you can see right now. This was slightly earlier, only about half an hour. Where's the echo coming from? Is that coming from Pablo? That was an awful echo. Sorry about that. But you can see the cyclone there, Cyclone Palm. You can see the eye much more clearly on this image at this point. And certainly beginning to look the part, isn't it? And certainly it's a possibility that the storm could affect Vanuatu as a Category 5 cyclone, if not on the Australian scale, on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Certainly we could be seeing winds of 140 miles per hour higher, and that's bad enough. Pablo is showing us some imagery, I think.
Yeah.
It must be getting late in the day there. The clouds are all yellow. It's actually quite a clear night, quite a clear evening now, I see.
That's completely opposite to what it's like in Manchester at the moment.
Is it?
I think so. It's all dark at the moment, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's night time, Daniel.
Yeah, and all cloudy as well.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
It was clear early this evening around sunset. It was pretty clear.
I think it was. I can't really remember.
No, it was. I know.
Oh yeah.
It is pretty chilly though. Only 3 degrees Celsius, a far cry from the tropics at this time.
Well, the thing I was going to mention shortly before I muted myself, was that we'd covered the Fujiwara effect in I think it was the first live stream we did. We'd covered it somewhat.
Good memory, because I would never have remembered that.
I remembered the name. It sounds funny.
I see.
Yeah.
Let's take some time now to look at some of the JTWC tracking maps, just for some comparisons here as well. You can see Barvi's latest tracking map. You can get a better grasp of its location at this time and some known places that the storm may go on to affect. You can see here it's going to likely to pass north of Pohnpei, likely to pass north of Chuuk and Yap as well in Micronesia. So the main threat remains with the Marshall Islands and Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands at this time, with the storm expected to peak at this dot here at the moment, 70 miles per hour at that point. It's currently projecting. It may change, it may be higher, it may trend downwards and go lower. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, looking at the other storms, the latest images on that as well, according to JTWC, it predicts Cyclone Nathan has made its closest approach to Australia, and it will gradually turn towards the north and then east, peaking as a Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, maybe Cat 3 on the Australian scale, as it moves out of the area and eventually heads towards New Caledonia. Cyclone Pam, of course, predicting a Category 5 storm on the 3rd and the 4th dot. So these dots here, which is its closest approach to Vanuatu's capital, Port Vila, Category 5 it's predicting at this point, with 160 miles per hour winds, gusting to 195 miles per hour, and for it to still be a Category 2 hurricane as it makes its closest approach to New Zealand, believe it or not, towards its northeast. Also, in just a moment, Dan, also Cyclone Olwyn, which is getting towards hurricane status as well, likely to make landfall near Learmouth and Exmouth, and could be a major storm when it does so, or 85 miles per hour, still significant, could possibly make 2 landfalls according to this map before moving southwards and then eventually southeastwards, passing close to Perth as a tropical storm, possibly, or tropical depression. I'm sure Jason will keep us up to date with that one because he lives near Perth, I think.
And
So, Daniel.
I've actually got I've got two things to say. First of all,
Rarity.
Jean mentions that the Fujiwara effect happened to Haliba, along with the other storms you were speaking about. And
Halliburton
also,
15S in a way, didn't it?
so I got a comment from Elliot Sainsbow asking what did the 18Z show for Palm. The 12Z was showing a minimum pressure of 866 millibars. Sad face.
Well, I certainly don't think it will get to 866 millibars. I don't think it'll go anywhere close. Though we could be looking at low 900s, I'd say. Well, at the most, to be quite honest, it may not get that far, but we'll see how it goes in the next few days. We're certainly looking potentially for Category 5, but the way it's not been intensifying in the past 6 hours is perhaps a little setback.
Category 5 hurricanes are relatively rare, aren't they? Not as common as Category 1.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, a stronger storm is more rare. There's a Jason's weather in the Perth area in the next 5 days, showing possible storm on Sunday, March 15th. Fairly, well, very warm on Friday, the 13th of March, 34 degrees Celsius. Certainly warm by my standards, anyway. And then dropping to 25 and 27, with lows of 15 to 20. That's all in Celsius, I believe. I should hope so.
I believe the hotter a country is, the more rain it usually gets. That's the usual case, isn't it? Apart from the deserts, obviously.
Well, I guess it's not the rule for everywhere, is it? I suppose.
Yeah.
But there you go. I'm not quite sure what Elliot Sainsbury was sad about. Sad about whether it would be 866 or sad about whether it's not going to be 866. But who knows? Go on.
Stephen P. Shaw just put
yeah.
bets on 908 millibars.
I just saw that, and I also saw him say the plasma from the biggest flares can reach the Earth in as little as 36 hours, most of them taking 3 or 4 days to arrive. So if that happened today, then we're looking at that occurring in around 3 or 4 days' time. So I mean, what will be happening in 3 or 4 days' time? Well, Cyclone Cari will probably be no longer with us. Cyclone Pam will have probably passed its peak. If the theory is true, it may bring on Pam to become a secondary peak. Who knows? Cyclone Nathan will probably be over the Coral Sea, maybe near its peak intensity, so we might see an enhanced peak from Cyclone Nathan. Obviously, if that theory is true, of course. I don't know much about this. Stephen probably knows more about it than me. Olwyn will have made landfall by then. And Bavi will be certainly heading out there. It might push it towards typhoon status. We'll see what happens. Looking at Jason's map right now, I think that's a fairly wide shot. Yes, there it is, showing the Australian region. But the image appears to have disappeared from my screen once more. Again, I don't know whether that's the case for those of you watching or not. And there's Jean's screen as well, showing the world pretty much and all the strongest areas. There actually seems to be a lot of strong wind occurring off the coast of Norway there as well. You were going to say something, Daniel?
No, I was just observing.
You were going to say something.
No.
But yeah, Jason pretty much confirms lots of rain forecast for Perth. Here's another image that he's showing us now as well, showing another variation of the imagery. Loads up really slow. Did that on my PC as well. But you can see at the moment Cyclone Nathan and Cyclone Olwyn, left and right, by the most extreme colours on the spectrum there. Cyclone Nathan, its influence extending into the Gulf of Carpentaria with a strong flare-up occurring over there as well. That's been the case for some time. I was talking about a similar occurrence a few days ago. Pablo is back, he tells us. Didn't even know you went, actually. And I'm not sure whether you know that your microphone is muted or not, Pablo. Just a little heads up there. And isn't it most annoying when the area that we're waiting to see is the one that comes up last. I bet that happens with Pam.
Mm.
It's still obscured by that square that hasn't come up yet. But I'm sure we'll see it momentarily.
It's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Almost.
Yeah.
Whilst we wait for that, let me try and get some floater satellite loops up on the on Pam actually. Here's some visible imagery. There's the few frames that have appeared. So you can see how the storm's actually been progressing a little bit towards the east in those last few frames. Looks more like a jog than an actual trend. It appears to have gone round a little bit in a sort of a, don't know how to describe it really, an arc of, I suppose, and is now beginning to move with a little bit of a westerly hint to it. So perhaps it may be making more of a beeline to Vanuatu now, but it is quite possible that it's another jog occurring there, and it may bounce back towards south-southeast once more. I suppose we'll keep a close eye on that one momentarily.
Dry air and Iowa replacement cycle.
Yes, is that what occurred recently in Pam, right?
Yes.
In those few frames there.
Struggle.
Pardon?
Yes.
Indeed. Let me see whether we can get another view on that one as well. Oh yes, there's the infrared imagery showing how the storm's been going in the past few hours. Heavy rainfall occurring over the Solomon Islands at this time, the easternmost parts. Vanuatu, the main islands of Vanuatu, not quite seeing it yet, but they're probably experiencing the calm before the storm at this time, and I'm sure we'll see worse very soon indeed.
What means these colors?
What's that?
What mean these colors?
Well, it actually doesn't have a guide there on that actual image, so I'm not entirely sure, but there are other images that show a scale, so we'll get that up at some point. There's another image provided by Jason. I wonder whether you could zoom into Pam a bit on that and have a look more at the eye wall and eye structure around that storm. And I was going to go somewhere else on my screen next, but I can't remember where. But yes, Stephen says we're still having a conversation about that solar flare. It's a new theory. You'd have to ask Dr. Kong Pop Yu Yen for further clarification, apparently. I'll try and find his details. Elliot said that it's sad that it was forecast to get to 866, especially since it's not going to stay out at sea. 908 seems reasonable. I think it depends how quickly that dry air stops being a problem. Indeed. It certainly seems that it's in a consolidative phase at this time, and I can see intensification occurring in the next few hours. Just my opinion. There's the imagery provided by Jason once more. Sorry, Daniel.
Why did it go green? Water vapor. Water vapor.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And it still appears that the worst part of the storm is towards the north, or maybe the northeast, or both. But still, certainly promises to be potentially a ferocious storm. There's a dog in the background there. We're on here for 10 more minutes before we finish up this evening on our live event, but we'll be back in a few hours' time as well. We're actually running another live event later on at 7:30 a.m. UTC, which of course is around early afternoon to late afternoon in the South Indian Ocean, the South Pacific Ocean as well. So we'll be running another live event early in the morning here in the UK. So there'll always be something going on. I don't know whether any of you guys will be participating, Guanyol.
I'll have to set my alarm.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Will that be an hour long?
Yes, it'll be another hour. And that was Jason's imagery showing the storm again in the in another imagery. I'm not sure what the name of it was, but it's one of my favourites actually. The last one that he had on, because it makes the storm look pretty cataclysmic.
Yeah. A bit like a donut.
I suppose. It certainly makes it more worrisome.
Yeah.
If you're trying to find an excuse to evacuate, all you have to do is look at that image.
Mhm.
Or to encourage someone else to do so, but I'm not quite sure what the plans are for evacuations and such on Vanuatu, or whether everyone just sits it out or not. Who's on Skype in the background anyway?
Well, I am, but I'm not got the thingies enabled, the notifications.
Right, I see.
So it's probably Pablo. No, it's not Pablo. Jean.
Indeed.
Probably. Yeah, it's Jean.
Is it indeed? Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. That is Jean's imagery. You can see the latest information occurring there. The latest wind map, sorry. The tropics and the extratropics certainly alive at this time. So, those of you who have perhaps just joined us, we're not too far from the end of the hour, of course, so let me do another recap of what's going on right now. We have Cyclone Cari. You can't see it on this image right now, but it is a 45 mile per hour subtropical storm in the southern Atlantic, and could possibly become a tropical cyclone in the next few hours. Who knows? We don't know whether or not that will occur yet. I don't know where the images have gone. But it was there not so long ago. We also have the remnants of Cyclone Haliber. Somehow they're still alive. They've caused some havoc over in Mauritius and maybe Réunion today. I've not heard out of Réunion. But most of the storm, it appears in this latest image, is now filtering or fizzling out, and the worst of it appears to be towards the southeast there.
We've just got a comment from Matthew Azuria, Azwara.
Azura.
Yeah. When will hypothetical hurricane season be available?
People always ask me that question. I honestly couldn't tell you at this time, because hypothetical hurricane seasons aren't going on at the moment, and I think by seeing all the updates that we've done today, you can probably see why there isn't time really to do that. The best I could ever offer anyone at this point is to, there probably won't be so many animations, but I could offer to draw out the maps for you. The sort of like similar to the National Hurricane Center's track maps, only my own version. Here's Cyclone Pam, 130 miles per hour, 115 knots. That's, what is that? Must be towards 200 kilometers per hour, or maybe more. That's near Vanuatu. You can see the islands of Vanuatu towards the bottom left-hand side of your image there. I think these islands, those are the Santa Cruz Islands, the easternmost points of the Solomon Islands, and the storm is affecting those mostly at this time. You can see that small island there, just about on the edge of its inner eye wall by the looks of things. The eye, of course, has been in an eye wall replacement cycle in the past few hours, so maybe it's getting off just that tad lighter than it would have done if it was earlier or later. But that's Pam, likely to intensify as it heads towards Vanuatu. Cyclone Nathan, that's along the coast of Queensland, Australia right now. It's stalling off the coast there, very near the coastline, and is likely to curve towards the north and then towards the east very slowly as it intensifies, likely as it moves towards the east, and possibly reaching Category 2 on the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale, Cat 3 on the Australian scale. Cyclone Olwyn, that's headed towards Western Australia. That's intensifying, 65 miles per hour at this point, around 110 kilometers per hour as it heads towards Western Australia, likely to make landfall as a stronger storm with winds of, at the moment it's predicting 85 miles per hour near Exmouth, near where the landfall location is expected to be at this point, but it could move west, it could move east. We don't know exactly where yet, but that's sort of the guide at this point. And we also have Cyclone or Tropical Storm Bavi, which has formed in the Western Pacific, the second named storm, I think, is it? Oh no, it's the third, isn't it? The third named storm of the Western Pacific, I think. Certainly the third numbered storm, anyway, which is near the Marshall Islands. and that's triggering tropical storm watches along the western Marshall Islands at this point, and may go on to affect Micronesia and Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands in the next few days. So we have a lot of systems active and a lot of things to be keeping our eyes on. We'll be doing lots of storm updates, not throughout the night, unfortunately, because I'll be asleep. But we'll be doing more updates. This will be the last update until 7:30 a.m. UTC tomorrow morning. So 7:30 a.m. UTC is when our next live update will be, and then we'll be doing more video updates in the afternoon tomorrow as well. So do stay tuned for that. I don't know whether any of you guys who are on our stream right now would like to make any videos during the night hours. Don't know whether you'd be interested in doing that or not to keep a service running, but who knows.
I can't really do anything.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect that from you, Daniel, because you've got a rest up as well. But I was speaking mostly to Jason and Pablo there, whether you guys might want to do anything overnight, but I'd understand if not. Of course, we also have Force 13 Extra. That's where our Force 13 team are going to be uploading their own videos from now on. It's also the home of where our game shows will be as well, our little bit of fun that we do every so often when we get a spare moment.
Hopefully I'll actually be able to get something up on there soon.
Yeah, indeed. Before we finish, let me also outline, of course, all importantly, the warnings that are currently in effect. This is from the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. Cyclone Olwyn, Category 2 on the Australian scale. Warnings are in effect from Wim Creek to Cape Cuvier, including the inland areas of Panawanica and Nanutara, and also Barrow Island. Tropical cyclone watches in effect from Cape Cuvier to the place name that I've forgotten again. I have to scroll down to see it, Kalbarri, including the inland places of Gascoyne Junction and Murchison Roadhouse. On the eastern coast of Australia, Cyclone Nathan is providing another problem. Tropical cyclone warnings, I should get in the habit of saying that, in effect from Cohen to Port Douglas, and cyclone watches in effect northwards to Lockhart River. In the South Pacific, we have warnings in effect in that orange shaded area, the darker orange, over most of the northern half of Vanuatu and the Santa Cruz Islands of the Solomon Islands, and tropical cyclone watches in effect for the southern part of Vanuatu, including the capital Port Vila, which the storm could pass just tens of miles away from the capital as a Category 5 storm on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Not saying it's certain, but it's certainly something that people should be preparing for along those eastern islands of Vanuatu. It could be a very strong storm indeed when it makes its closest approach. And one more thing, warnings in effect for some of the western islands of what's it called? Marshall Islands right now. Got to load it up again. Where is it? There's Guam. Tropical Storm Barry. Oh, it's actually updated, so we'll bring you some new information now. Tropical storm warnings are now in effect for Ujjayi and Enewetak in the western Marshall Islands, and a tropical storm watch remaining in effect for Eiling Lab Atoll in the western Marshall Islands. So tropical storm warnings now in effect for some of those western islands in the Marshall Islands as well.
Just before we end, is it true that a sneeze is as forceful as a hurricane?
Possibly.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
What category would you say? Category
Depends
what?
on the sneeze.
Yeah.
Brilliant note to end on. Excellent.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to I'm just looking to see whether there are any other people who I need to respond to before we leave. Kailash Pillay is talking about what the conditions are expected to be in Fiji. Well, I must point that out as well because we haven't mentioned Fiji once yet. Let's take a look at the tracking map here. Fiji most likely will not see any adverse conditions at all from Cyclone Pam, but I would say western parts of the Fiji Islands, the western coastline there around Nadi, may want to just keep an eye on the storm just in case it does something unexpected, because if it does, you certainly don't want to be caught in the path of that storm. But it seems very unlikely this time that Fiji will see too bad conditions from this cyclone. At the very worst, you may get the odd tropical storm gust maybe, and perhaps some heavy rainfall. That is probably the bigger threat, to be quite honest with you, because I know the models in the past predicted some heavy rainfall along the side there, affecting Fiji as well. But obviously, if that does happen, we'll keep you most up to date on that. Just check the updates, check updates on PAM, check our live stream if you can tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. UTC, and we'll also probably have one at the same time tomorrow evening as well. That's all from us for now, though. So if anyone has any final comments, now's the time.
No.
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 Yes, Pablo.
The clouds of Cari started to become warming. The storm is weaker than earlier.
Cari has weakened, are you saying?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that, I suppose. The forecast was calling for maintaining its strength or slight weakening. I think the worst of it is probably over now, isn't it, in Brazil, because it's starting to move a little bit further away as well, isn't it? Or is it?
Apparently starting to move to southeast.
Yes, there's Jason's imagery confirming that, actually. You can see how the storm's been progressing just that little bit towards the southeast on that floater imagery as well. Jean, thanks for helping us out once more this evening from Mauritius. Hope you don't get too wet over there and flooded and all that stuff. I hope the conditions are all right. And please put that flag back up behind you, because I liked it. Daniel, thanks for your support this evening, and for Jason as well. I believe Jason will be talking in our next update, which is really helpful because I need someone who can actually relieve a little bit of talking from me, because Waniel doesn't do that job very well.
I'm sorry, I'm only a novice.
Okay, we know you're not.
You saw it rained almost 9 inches.
What's that? 9 inches, did you say, Pablo?
Yes, over East Santa Catarina.
Is that which province are you in? Are you in that province, or are you somewhere else? You are there, aren't you?
Here in my area, no, but we had a lot of floods in the cities.
Oh, I see. All right then. Just saying that, Stephen, thank you for your witty message. Missing our morning voices. We'll still be as bright as the crack of dawn, I'm sure. At least one of us will be, and that's probably going to be Daniel.
Yeah, if I can get out of bed.
You better. You better.
I'll set my alarm for 7.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for watching, everyone. We'll have more updates as and when. Stay tuned on the Force 13 channel, of course, on YouTube, and our social pages as well. You might want to follow us. Force 13 is our address on Facebook. You'll be able to find us quite easily, I'm sure, by our unmissable logo. That's probably what gives it away when you search it. You can also find us on Twitter at Force 13. Don't forget, when you type in 13, it's all in text 13 and not the numerals 13. It's in text 13. But to make it a bit more confusing for you, you can also add me on Skype by adding Fool13, and that time it is the numerals rather than the text 13. So the name is Fool13 on Skype if you'd wish to speak to me personally, and possibly join a live event if you wish.
And don't forget the chat room as well.
Yeah, and the Force 13 chat room where we talk in a group as well. But for now, that is all from Force 13 HQ and all of our affiliates, I suppose you could call them. Thanks ever so much, everyone, for making this show possible. Thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye.